Hey guys, BMW Airheads, here's Heiko in my garage. Today I'm going to make a quick little video to help a fellow airhead on Facebook. Jeremy had a question about draining and refilling his forks with 235 milliliters of fork oil, and apparently that didn't work out too well. So I'm going to explain what he needs to do to get all the old oil out and then fill the new oil. All right, you guys, hang in there. All right, Jeremy, here we go. I'm going to try to explain what you need to do to get the old oil out and then to get the new oil into your forks. And I'm going to use a few parts, a schematic, and my motorcycle over there to explain. So the fork consists of a few, let's just talk about the big pieces. The chromed top part that goes into your triple clamp is here on the schematic is this part. It's called the stanchion. That's the shiny part that you don't want to nick up or get any rust on. And inside the stanchion, you have the fork spring. I have one sitting right here. I don't have all those parts lying around, but yeah. The fork goes into the stanchion. Then you have at the very top of the stanchion, two pieces. One is, it depends on what year model. Sometimes they look a little different. So this is the cap that goes into the top of the triple clamp into your stanchion. The top of the stanchion is threaded, and then this goes in and pushes against the spring like so. And as you can see, there's a hole in there so that you can fill with oil. And then once you're done filling with oil, you put something like this back on there. Again, different years have different caps, different setups. The fork internals look different. So, and then the bottom of the stanchion is pretty much where all the very important action happens. Pretty much this whole line up here, this is the damper rod. And there are lots of seals and bumpers and rings and clips and things that I don't have to show you right now, so or else I would do that. This is pretty much the upper part here is like a piston. And the piston runs inside the stanchion. So pretty much the inside of the stanchion is like a cylinder. And the top part of this whole damper rod assembly is a piston that goes up and down inside the stanchion, and the spring pushing against this piston. So the spring keeps the piston from going up. But of course, you know, that's what the spring is for. That's the springy action of your fork. And then also you have oil in there. So the piston, there's a whole complicated setup with like holes and you know, it's more or less a piston that has a valve in it that allows fork oil to flow through it. So the spring bears the weight and retracts and expands. And then the oil inside your fork does the dampening action. So your motorcycle, if there wouldn't be any oil in it, it would always bounce like woo, 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 until the spring eventually slows it down, or the friction inside the fork would slow it down. But with the oil, it dampens, and you only have a smooth, you know, it contracts once and then returns to its original position. So stanchion, piston, damper rod, and then at the very bottom of the damper rod, has a little piece that sticks out the bottom of your fork. So this is the bottom. Here is the fork slider. This is the bottom of the fork slider. This goes in here. And the very bottom of the damper rod sticks out here and has a nut on it. And on the inside, right in here, see this little recess? That's where a crush washer goes in. So here on this picture, I want to say it's number 18, soft metal washer. That's a seal ring. You see also there's, you know, springs and ball. There's like a valve contraption. This little washer, crush washer that goes in here, that seals the bottom of the fork. On the outside, you just have a normal, I think it's a spring washer and a nut that kind of crushes the crush washer in here and seals the bottom of the fork so that your oil cannot come out of your fork. Let's now walk over to my motorcycle. So in order for you see here, there is a crush washer between this big cap and the fork slider. And then at the bottom of the fork is a little rubber cap. And let's turn some light on. If we look at that, oh, I actually have a leak. Isn't that amazing? I wonder what that is. That's not fork oil. Oh no, it is fork oil. It's not, dang it, see? So this is the nut that I was talking about, and that's the bottom of your damper rod assembly. And the crush washer that's inside in here is supposed to keep this from happening. Good thing that we're looking at it right now. So now, when you want to get the oil out of your fork, you got to get the weight of your front wheel, and usually my airhead sits on the rear wheel, so my front wheel is free and clear. Then you take this nut off, and then if you want to do that on both sides at the same time, probably makes it a little easier. So you just take the nut loose. You don't need to take it off. Just take it loose a couple turns so you have some play. And then you need to pull the fork slider down as you push the damper rod in, and that will pretty much open up this opening, and then the oil comes out. And then you just put a container underneath and let it sit like this until it's all drip out. Then since you didn't take off the nut, you still left it all assembled, you might be able to just squish your fork a couple times, because I mentioned that the piston is probably sitting somewhere up here, is also a valve that lets the fork oil go through in a measured way that causes this dampening action. So there might be some oil above the piston and some below. So in order for you to get it all out, you kind of have to squish the forks a couple times. So push and release, and then make sure that you are pushing this the damper rod in a little bit, so you release the seal, the fork, the crush washer up above, to make it all come out. And then you just let it sit. The oil will eventually make its way down to the bottom and drain out. And then you probably notice in your manual, at least in my manual, they always have two different amounts of oil. One is when the fork is completely dry and freshly rebuilt. Let's see here. Where do we have it here? /56, that would be mine here. Add oil is 235 and rebuild is 250. So when you have a completely dry fork, you use 250. If you just refill, it's 235. But you first have to make sure all the oil comes out. And then I usually have to take my handlebar out of the way, take this top cap off so you can actually get in there and refill. And then you refill it slowly. After you, of course, tighten this up, it takes an Allen key to hold the damper rod, and then a offset wrench like that one here to tighten it up. There is also a torque value in your manual somewhere. Let's see, torque spec, fork leg, top nut, damper rod, Allen screw. Oh, here we go. Where is it? Damper rod, Allen screw. Fork oil filler plug. Steering stem, adjuster fork leg top, fork yoke, brace, damper rod, lower leg fastener. Here's an 8mm nut, /567 up to 1980. 23 to 26 Newton meters or 17 to 19 foot-pounds. That's probably what that is. And you have to hold the damper rod end. That's an Allen key in there. See it? And tighten up the nut at the same time. That's why I use those offset wrenches. And like I said, there is a seal washer in there that's supposed to seal it. Mine apparently didn't, even though I used brand new just recently. Yeah, so you tighten that up and then you start filling. Or else, if you don't do that, it's going to come out again. And then you might have to pump the forks a couple times. Like I said, there is a valve in here that controls the flow. So you want to, you know, move the parts in there a little bit, bounce it around, and then you will have your forks refilled. If you have any questions, please let me know.